Alright, hello everyone, this is Disc, and here we have another Plaguefall this week. Plaguefall 23. We are Tyrannical, Sanguine, and Storming. A pretty good week, and pretty good comp for this place too. This run actually panned out to be quite a bit better than my other video I posted. But thought I would take this opportunity to go over some different ideas and explain some concepts a little bit more thoroughly. Alright, so here we are, we're about to get going.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
So mainly I wanted to mention my bars. Grid 2 is a powerhouse for a Discipline Priest. Personally, I think all players should be the same color. If you have everyone colored by class, naturally I feel like some colors will dominate others, and you won't quite see them equally. Your eyes will register them differently. So I think it's better to have them all base the same color. Moreover, I use that slight blue shade to track my atonements, so I need one value to be without and one value to be with, and then the deficits always to grow from the right as black. Then of course shields grow from the left as that dark blue. Everything is pretty standard so far. So with this group, immediately I'm thinking Monk. Windwalker Monk is going to be my main PI target for trash, and I'm going to use our Death Knight as my PI target for Tyrannical bosses. He has Army of the Dead. It's pretty good with PI. Better than the other options here. Always use a Shadow Fiend and Schism on Arcalath. It's a good pair. Keeping everyone atoned. Not over atoned though. Relying on DPS here.
Now claim its power as your own.
Get a couple of atonements out on these guys. The only thing you need to watch out for is their belch. Could one-shot a DPS depending on if it's fortified or what level key. Definitely going to hurt a priest if you get hit. Tossed in a fear there to help out. Gave him a punt too. Sanguine Week's Shining Force is even more valuable. You want to use it to punt mobs out of the Sanguine. You don't want them to heal. And then right here it looks like our tank is about to get belched on, so I give him a grip out of the way. He got really mad about it, but play it back. Arguably, a belch wouldn't have done much to him as a tank, but you always want to try and avoid damage every chance you can get. As a DPS or as a healer, tank, doesn't matter. You want to avoid things where you can. On the back end, yes, I might heal you up, but what that looks like is you're taking mana away from the group. And then this is our last PI spot before we go into the boss. The best way you want to PI a monk is after Zwin and before Bone Dust Brew. PI is 20 seconds, so it lays on top of 24 seconds Zwin perfectly, and it lays, and then the Bone Dust Brew lays perfectly within the 20-second PI. So After's Win before Bone Dust Brew is 100% value on PI from Windwalker. Yeah, if you glance at the meters, that's what you call a fat PI. My middle name. Also notice most of my boons here are pretty aggressive, focusing on the DPS rather than the HPS. I let atonements fall off because I don't need the healing, and the less you have atoned, the more DPS you do. It's always good practice to keep yourself and the tank atoned during boon, but not every situation needs it. Give this guy a little punt up the hill, that's fun. Also, don't be afraid of defensive penances. They're really strong right now, and going into 9-2 they're going to be even stronger depending on your build. Alright, so I learned from earlier this week, and I played this boss a lot better. PI is just coming up. I think I'm waiting for the slam here, but I go ahead and preemptively barrier. We don't want anyone to spike low. And we're using 1 cooldown per stomp. So barrier and right into Schism to heal. And likewise with a Death Knight, you want to PI after Army of the Dead, but before Apocalypse. I think I might have lost a second of efficiency there. It was by choice though. I was waiting for that stomp. In this round I am anticipating boon, so I'm just getting everyone atoned. It's always great to toss penance in that hit. As you're getting knocked back, that's one thing we can cast in the air. It's nice to keep coverage on your party. I hop into the haste buff here. You get more blasts that way. Your arcane blast is where the, ascended blast is where the real damage is. And you'll notice that radiance was completely perfect. The way you want to play radiance in this fight is have half of the cooldown before the stomp and half after the stomp. You want to cover the front end of that slam. It can be pretty dangerous. But then you also want to refresh all your absorbs because it leaves a dot. So half and half. Half before, half after. A little bit hard to time, but that's the best way to maximize there. PI is almost up. I think we use it here. Yep, on the monk. After's Win, before Bone Dust Brew. I chose to dispel our Death Knight there because he was in more trouble than I was. I was kind of outside the fight. Just taking a little mana break here. Jumping in with my dispels quickly. These pulls will add a stacking disease to you when you're in melee, and This is a melee heavy group, but thankfully we have 2 monks and myself. We have 3 disease dispels. Walk in the park. I notice I'm a little closer than 8 yards range, so I think I try and exit here. Yeah, just kidding. And this, to be honest, I saw it happening, but I wasn't quick enough to ask. I wish I had gripped the Death Knight there. I could have saved his life, but he was ate by the affixes. First the storming got him, and then he fell into a double stacked Sanguine, I think. Gotta watch out for those tornadoes. But I get a quick resin. All cooldowns are at the ready. This is a little bit harder of a pull than average, so gotta be on guard. Gotta play correctly here. So I start getting my dots out, and we want to PI here after Zwin, before Bone Dust Brew. We really need to maximize that. It's the one spell that's going to ensure this pull. Yeah, and then the Windwalker was trying to troll me here. Like, he's saying upset. What he said is I PI late. Like, I think you should just be happy you got the PI, and dude, if you're watching this, roll the tapes. It was a perfect PI. It's not my middle name for nothing. I actually checked the timers before I started doing this narration. I PI'd him 1 second after Zwin, and it was before his Bone Dust Brew. That's exactly where you want it. So you can roll the tapes. This is another aggressive boon. I'm not doing it for the HPS, I'm doing it for the DPS. Yep, that was 10 full seconds of boon. Best practice is not to break from boon, except maybe once for a radiance. But you don't really want to break from boon for the return on it. Using penance to spread my dots there. Saves the cooldown and saves mana. Penance is a little bit cheaper on mana than a dot is. Oh yeah, that Windwalker says he can see my CDs. He must have just gotten Omni CD and now he thinks he is all-seeing. But I played that right. I really didn't want to fight him. Anyone who's watching this probably knows what I mean when these keys can get really possessive and toxic. People can get out of line pretty quickly. But I am trying to defend myself. I pride myself on using PI correctly. I've actually built my whole UI system around that spell. I am not perfect, but I do my best to always maximize it. It's really fun for me. Yeah, and if you're wondering what I mean about maximizing PI, I have Omni CD set only to show everyone's main offensives on the left of their frame. I really don't think there's any need to have 12, 11 spells you're tracking per spec. It's not your responsibility. There's no reason to track that. You're not going to gain anything from it. Especially as a priest, all you really need to know is where your PI is going and when. So I just track everyone's main offensive CD that I pair PI with. And then I have a weak aura that has them glow when they Q it too, just so I don't miss it. So you'll see here my aggressive play did lead to a death. I didn't have everyone atoned in that boon. Probably could have played out differently. Windwalker pulled aggro with my PI, and I think he was also in Sanguine. Led to his death, but the pull was over. Sag. We still got use out of him. Look at his damage down there. Attaboy.
One of the more ruthless Malorne draws close. Be ready.
And I actually never seen this, but we took a little tiny add-in too, I guess. No reason not to. Varuth is always a great place for barrier. I try and tack it in at the end of that cast to get most use out of it. Yeah, see the Death Knight, he'll run back in it for coverage. Helps with that dot. And you'll notice on the next one, I'm targeted. I have no pain sup, no barrier. All I have is Rapture, but worst case scenario, you can pop Rapture and just spam yourself. You'll probably live.
My mana is nearly gone.
To the victor goes the anima. Claim your power, Maw-walkers.
That's probably my favorite power, the increased crit. It really helps your DPS output. Although, don't look at mine for this run, it was quite low. I like to hit 3.5k DPS per second as a minimum, and closer to and over 4k, even better. Really wish PI showed on the chart of the priest, being that it's the utility spell that I bring. I think it would help our case when it comes to comparing to other specs output. I do believe PI's damage is mine. Essentially, it registers on the other player. Hard to tell. Always attacking the mob with the spectrometer. Also, that's just the order of that play. And we're taking boss with these two. Really not a bad pull, but we have a couple extra mechanics to watch out for. I'm most worried here about the frontal, but go ahead and drop paints up here since it's a larger than average pull. Get good use of it that way. PI went to our Death Knight for the boss. He's the better single target here. So everyone's offensives are down. So I take this opportunity to use my boon to help get this bomb. And that was a chance of fate right there, that a tornado hit me up right in the line of that attack, but it threw me in the air above it and lived. So thanks RNG for that one. You can always use that audible cue for when the disease is coming out. Punted that guy away. He affects the damage in the group. You always want to CC him, and it has to do with his range, so just keep them away, or CC'd, and or CC'd. Bomb went down, no problem. For my feathers, it's a pretty common macro. I think most priests who use feather do this. But you can use an @player command for your feather, and it's like a personal speed boost. So PI came up again. I thought if I should hold it or if I should use it, and since this is a Tyrannical boss, I thought I would go ahead and use it. Let the hunter have a little bit of fun. We don't really have much in front of us that's challenging, and the way Plaguefall lays out, after that boss you should still have one more PI before the boss. Now the tank says he wants PI. Everyone's just really wanting it today. Doesn't want grips, but he wants my PI. Is there anything else? Yeah, I saw the Death Knight was getting into trouble there with the Sanguine, so made sure to flood some heals on him there. Definitely recommend, as a disc priest or a healer, use party nameplates. It's so important for being able to keep an eye on where your party is. So this was a very defensive boon. I entered boon, and at the very top I threw in a Radiance just to get some coverage out. This was going to be a short pull. No reason to delay the Radiance to later in the boon. Usually I would try and Radiance at the end of boon after Schism, because it's nice to have atonements covering the group after boon ends. You don't ever want to have a dry moment where it's going to take you multiple seconds to get heals out. You want to have at least people atoned, leading out of boon, depending on the scenario. And with Sagadon, you'll see there I pre-cast my Radiance. You want them to hit as close together as you can. It's a little bit of a vulnerable moment after that AoE damage goes out. So I try and have my Radiance pre-cast to heal everyone up right after that slam. I'll either Holy Nova here. That's one of the only times I'll Holy Nova. Or Mind Seer, you can do that. I think the Holy Nova might be better in some cases because you can do it while being gripped through the air, whereas you can't do a channeled Mind Seer while you're being gripped. And this is our last PI opportunity. It's going to go to the Monk for AoE, after Zwin, before Bone Dust Brew. And this was a little ballsy. I think the tank was trying to test me. We don't want two stealthings at the same time. Two groups of them, I mean. I went ahead and put a pain step on myself just to make sure we get through it. And you'll notice, thanks Nvidia, but my 3070, it can't even get you frames these days.
stop me. My blades will rend your flesh. I will slay you where you stand.
No bloodlust on this boss.
Fear the dagger.
Went ahead and tossed a grip on our friend there. There's no global on it. So you'll notice if you play that part back, PI just came available, and my PI target used his Apocalypse 8 seconds early. And that's, I would consider, a pretty big loss. We wanted both of his cooldowns running for the full duration of my PI. If anyone needed Omni CD in this group, our Death Knight could have optimized my spell a little bit better. If you noticed that I had 8 seconds left. And I don't know why he's standing out there. What's going on?
My blades will rend your flesh. I will slay you where you stand.
So this one's on me. It is Tyrannical. I wall and barrier. I just don't want to play around with it. I have seen that one-shot me before. Pain Sup is coming back up, so I went ahead and dropped 2 defensives there, gambling that I wouldn't get it at least more than one more time. Definitely want to get a boon out on those ads. Gripped our monk in there. He was probably close enough, but I like this spell. I like to keep it on cooldown. I actually have a conduit for it. I go into a rapture there. If this were fortified, I would not rapture this boss at all. I would just pump DPS. But being that we are Tyrannical 23, I just favored a little more caution there. PI is up again, but we don't want to use it here. We're not going to get any value out of it. Boss is pretty much over. I do boon though. Arguably not the best call. Got no value out of it. Could have actually done a lot better with it in the next room, but I'm not perfect. I don't have boon either, so... Well, I knew I didn't have boon, but I usually boon here. For Windwalkers, Bone Dust Brew is a pretty good spell even without Zwin running. So I saw you pop Bone Dust Brew. I went ahead and PI'd him, and this is where our Windwalker dropped one of his cooldowns. Since we're going to backtrack for the oozes, this is definitely a room where you want to drop your 2-minute cooldowns. They will be available before the boss starts. Get a punt there to help with the Sanguine. Yeah, so basically our monk wasted my PI. Totally wasted it. But that's okay. We have a Kush timer at this point. Nothing to worry about, but the way I look at keys is they are timed. Everything we do is to, get through this dungeon quicker. Speed is the name of the game here. And 2-minute cooldowns with PI in the group should be popped religiously every 2 minutes. You shouldn't hold when you're a priest's target. I think maybe he just overlooked it, being that the cooldown timers came up at different times for him there. But to show him that I still love him, I'm going to give him a couple feathers. I gave him 2. You're welcome. I forgive you, monk, but be better. So we're all standing in melee, we're all getting dots, we're all missing health. A great way to lead into Rapture is with a Radiance first. You don't want to do that if everyone's full health. That would be a waste of mana. But if there's at least 2 or 3, well maybe 3 or 4 people missing health, Radiance first to atone them, because Mastery comes into play on anyone who's atoned. You get more healing out of it. So if you Radiance before your Rapture, it will make it stronger. I'm drinking all the way back here because I feel like there's some attitudes in the group, and I wasn't sure if they were going to let me drink since they were ahead of me, so I needed to go ahead and just make sure I get mana. I'm watching my PI target here, the Death Knight. I see he popped Apocalypse, but his main cooldown we're looking for is Army of the Dead. So this is a more standard Acid Rain than my last video where we boon at the top. Cast Radiance anywhere in the middle of boon, and your party will be covered through the eruption. I like to, when I can, backload that Radiance in between my last 2 blasts. That way there's atonements in the group exiting boon. Because at that point, your offensive spells are waiting on you, and you need to get those Penance and the Solace out. Mind Blast. And you don't want to do that when there's no atonements. It's going to be a lack in coverage. So I thought about rapturing this phase. It's really nice with Bloodlust, but I told our Death Knight at the start of the key to use his barrier here. So I opted for Shadow Fiend and Schism. I wanted to replenish my mana sun, and Shadow Fiend is great with Bloodlust too, so it was an opportunity to increase my DPS and get the healing coverage. Also, I took the power for the group's improved movement. It's a very defensive power for this key, especially since this last boss is just one large dance. It helps people dodge what they need to dodge. This is my second boon, which is like how I like to play this fight. I went ahead and paints up myself since it was in my book. Even though I was in boon, I just need to make sure I lived through boon. I was a little bit low on health there. And since Rapture was up, I went ahead and tossed some shields out just for coverage. And it helped with that last rain. And there we go. That Plaguefall was much better than my last one this week. A much cleaner play all around. I think we did better on the timer too, but I really wanted to go into depth a little bit more on best ways to use boon. There are so many different ways you can use it, and it's all very situational. But I feel like in the future, as I make these videos, I'm going to try and highlight each boon and its differences and why I did it that way. It's a hard spell to master. Unfortunately, nothing about discipline is easy, but it's so powerful once you get a real good hang for it. So good luck everyone out there with your discipline adventures. I can't wait to start getting some comments and questions down below. I would love to tailor these videos more to what people are looking for. So if anyone's interested to know why I did something or something about my UI, please make a comment of it and I'll work it into my video. And until next time, Disc out.